That's a really bad sign.
Peter Quill finds the nature and purpose of his unique existence. Nebula, a daughter of Thanos, seeks revenge on her sister Gamora. And without spoiling too much more of the plot, all I can really say is, hijinks ensue. The good. Most of what I said about the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie applies to this one. It's got a well-constructed story, great characters, it's hilarious, and yet still manages to maintain a strong sense of emotion. In this movie, through the bizarre circumstances they're put into, we get to see these characters take satisfying next steps in their development, especially Nebula, who, as I said in my other video, didn't get enough screen time in the first movie. For both simpler scenes and action scenes, this movie is really well shot, being both exciting to see unfold and visually gorgeous. Kurt Russell plays a character in this movie. For those of you who don't know who that character's going to be, I'm not going to spoil it here, but suffice to say, he does a really good job playing this character, and this character is really good for the story. For this particular piece of property, adding volume to the sequel title instead of just calling it Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was just a really good idea. The iffy. For much of this movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy are separated into two different groups. As such, this movie does a lot of bouncing around between plots, subplots, and character arcs. That being said, what's dealt with is not overly complex and it's pretty easy to follow. Like the first movie, the soundtrack for this movie is fun, showcasing a lot of really good classic songs from the 70s and 80s. For my tastes, I prefer the soundtrack of the first movie. This movie and its, holy crap, 5 post-credit scenes are packed to the brim with obscure character teases, cameos, Easter eggs, lots of fun stuff. Being the jumbo-sized extravaganza of comedy that this movie is, there are a few jokes that might go on a little bit longer than they need to. However, ultimately, they don't ruin the tension or emotional impact enough for it to matter. There are plot points in this movie that are aggressively cliché. Since most of the other elements are so well done, it's pretty forgivable, but it is notable. This movie executes a very tricky balancing act between a lot of characters, major or minor. Sometimes, there are some characters who feel like they're not quite getting all that they should be getting. In regards to physical hardships undergone by the characters of this movie, there are moments where I feel like I have to suspend my disbelief a little further than I'm used to doing. The bad. There are moments pretty early on in the movie where I could have done without some of the crassness and the toilet humor, but that's a pretty minor note. The verdict? This movie held on to the snarky atmosphere of the first film and dialed everything else way up. Even with some minor issues, it is a really, really fun film to watch. This is Detective Steve, and I don't know if Volume 3 will be able to top this, but I can't wait to find out.